So I think I'm inviting Fiona, the two mics, Rob Lambert, who's joining us. I think Lavina is going to join us, and Chris. So what I'm going to do is just introduce the people who haven't made an appearance so far. And just let me get to my notes because I can't, my memory is rubbish. Lavina Ramchandani is a senior test consultant at Deloitte. She's been testing for more than 6 years, finds a lot of testing very interesting and enjoys exploring and learning new skills within it. She'll share her knowledge and help those who attend the session take away something that could help them in their day-to-day testing exercises. Okay, so that's Lavina. I'm looking for Rob. Rob's a management and HR coach, started his career as a tester, then an engineering manager, then a VP of HR, and now a director of his own company, Cultivated Management. He teaches via weekly YouTube videos, books from the stage, and through coaching and consulting. He also publishes a weekly newsletter called The Manager and teaches an award-winning communication workshop, which is now online and available to all. And I've just got to find Chris. If you can bear with me, I'm sorry about this. If Chris is coming online and I can't find him, where is he? I've lost you, Chris. I think, oh, wait a minute, I beg your pardon. Chris is a technology professional working with leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs to deal with complexities of implementation, migration, quality, and measurable programs and capabilities. Chris helps to enable for scaling high quality, high velocity product development process and sustaining it over extended periods of time. Okay, so actually we've got a rather strong panel here, and if you can bear with me, oops, I didn't want to do that.
Maybe we can all see each other.
So the challenge we've got is we can't see each other, I think. I can't see any faces showing up. So we're going to do this kind of blind, which makes it a challenge to know who wants to speak and when. So what I'm going to, but having said that, given there are 6 of us, if I throw a question open and just say, when I say, well, can anyone answer that? Just say yes, and whoever that person is, let's listen to them, and everyone will get their turn. But you, when I ask the question, would you want to sort of respond to this question? Just say yes, and then we'll step back and let you have your say for your 2 minutes or whatever it is. Okay, I'm hoping this is going to work all right, but I do apologize for the lack of faces on the call. So panel, okay, here we go. What is your advice to the middle managers, leaders who are under pressure from senior leadership to over deliver beyond the team's capacity? Who'd like to take that one on?
I think I can go. It's Lavina here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go, Lavina.
I think I'm gonna actually say what Deanna just said in her question and answer session. Just learn to say no sometimes, depending on the priority and severity of what is being delivered. And sometimes what happens is when we over deliver, we just don't realize our team just pushing too hard to get there, and it looks like we don't care for each other. So as she also said, make sure you build relationships with them. You are working with them, and they are like your work family. You work with them more than you're like at home, for example, sometimes. So sometimes just looking after the sanity of your team to not over deliver would be something that I would suggest. And if there are times where you can't say no, then maybe just breaking these tasks into smaller chunks and speaking to the management team and explaining that it would be better for us to maybe break these down yet deliver. Maybe it won't be at the date you've given, but slowly we'll get there. And that's the kind of ideology I'd put forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can I add to that?
Go.
In fact, this is advice I just gave to somebody on a Slack channel. There are, of course, many different ways of saying no. And one of them is to say, we have this, this, and this, which you have told us are essential. or all things that are essential. We have this much capacity. Which of these would you like us not to do? Because there's simply no mileage in doing this kind of over-promising and attempting to over-deliver. You'll burn your people out. You'll lose their trust, and eventually they'll go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Paul, can I chip in as well?
Go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's Mike here, Mike J. So totally agree with Fiona. We need to be able to articulate to the senior leadership what the opportunity cost might be, so the things we need to let go of. But equally, we need to talk about the risk management. You know, what are the things that could potentially go wrong with dealing with overcommittal, particularly once a team has been able to demonstrate its capacity, been able to demonstrate its velocity and its business value in an agile world within each sprint and over the course of an iteration. And by increasing beyond capacity comes a risk, and we need to be very good at being able to articulate those too. Some of those will be people risk, some of them might be burnout, some of them might be quality risks, and some of them actually may be risks around the things that we do need to let go of. And actually getting the management team to sign off against those risks is a powerful way of getting some skin in the game from the people who are asking for the overcommitment, I think.
Mm. Thanks, Mike. Anyone else want to chip in? I think with regards to testing, I mean, there's like it's the age-old problem of people expecting the earth and then assuming you can deliver it. So managing expectations is the only way, in some respects, of preventing this this request to extend yourself beyond your own capacity. So I think the role of the test manager is to continually talk about the art of the possible and the probable and the impossible, and just to manage the expectations of what a team can humanly do in the time they've got. So, being asked to do the impossible, we've all been there, and who the hell wants to be working weekends and late nights and who knows what? No one at all. So anyone else want to comment on that, or shall I move on?
The only other comment I'd make is that sometimes you do need to over-deliver. There are points in time in an organization's evolution when it goes from, being a startup, which is bootstrapped, to getting kind of funding from investors, where it suddenly needs to actually hit the market with something in a timescale which is maybe at odds with the capacity. And understanding that business imperative is really important, and being able to get the team to work the extra hours, work the weekends, do what's needed to get the product out the door at a time when the organization needs it is also a thing that people need to do. So it shouldn't become a de facto mode of operation, but anybody who's in middle management who is being asked to do that needs to really understand the why from the leadership team, and on occasion be able to sell it to their teams with the commitment and credibility to make sure it happens as well. So don't lose the business goals of the organization. They pay you.
Yeah. Nice one. Anyone else on this one, or we'll move on? Okay, gone. Let's move on. So next question is from Neil Thompson, another old friend of mine, I have to say. That's one of the problems of being so long in this business. I tend to know a lot of people. It's a question to Mike, but I think it's for all the introverts or extroverts maybe in the room. Did you stop being it's to Mike Anderson, US Mike. Did you stop being an introvert, or did you harness it Susan Cain style, or do you pretend to be an extrovert on selected occasion? I ask as a fellow introvert. What do you think?
Well, I can appreciate that, and I'm not sure who Susan Cain is, but we'll go ahead anyway.
I was going to say she's a lady who did a really good TED talk about being an introvert and just making progress in life. So I mean, she's just a successful introvert, let's say.
Gotcha. So I also wanted to make the difference between being shy and being an introvert, and I was both. And I think I have somewhat overcome. When I say overcome both, I say I would overcome the shyness, but not the introvertness, because to me the definition of an introvert is they prefer being alone in a certain way, and they recharge by being alone. And obviously I do a lot of professional speaking and coaching, but what I learned is that that can really be draining for me. That takes energy away from me. So I'm really cautious of my calendar, so that if I speak, it's funny, the more people I speak to, the more it drains me. I love doing it, but it takes a lot out of me. So I really make sure that I don't have a lot of if I'm on like a 2-hour, if I'm training for 2 hours, I make sure that the next 2 hours I have to go take a walk, go eat. Sometimes I watch Netflix or something, because it's a really solitary activity that I can get my energy back. So to me, that's what being an introvert is. It's a bit different from being shy, but I was shy, but I was able to teach myself. Some of it was with confidence. Some of it was getting to know myself and getting comfortable with myself. Others were small tactics about how to start a conversation. That's one thing I work a lot with. The people I work with are on confidence and presence. That's all can be learned through confidence and mindset and habit changes. So just to recap, I think to me, shyness can be overcome. Introvert is in a way how we're wired, and you have to make allowances for that. So don't have back-to-back calls on your calendar, and really give yourself that time. If you're at a conference all day, go to the hotel. I know we're not a conference, we're on a virtual conference, but like a traditional 2 or 3 day in-person conference, make sure you go back to your hotel room and just put your feet up for 1 or 2 hours, and that's okay to do. Give yourself permission to that. Those are some of the things that have helped me.
Mm. Any other introverts on the call? I know
yeah.
I'm one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mean, I think taking care of yourself is the most important thing. But contextually, there are times when you have to look like an extrovert. When I was managing a test team of 80 people on a project with a program with a whole lot of military types, which you'll be familiar with, Paul, from the background. I once said very publicly, and I'll edit it because this is, we want to be polite, but I once said very publicly early on in the process, in a forum where I knew it would get around rapidly, you F with my data, I break your face. And, I don't normally behave like that. There are many projects where I would never say anything like that. But in that one, it was really important to establish myself as a force to be reckoned with. Sometimes you have to pretend to be an extrovert and behave as if you are.
Mm-hmm. I buy that. Anyone else? I'll say something.
I'll go, Paul.
Okay, go for it.
I actually started as a very introvert tester in this community. I fell into testing, so I was finding my feet as to what am I doing, if this is the right role for me. And then slowly learning from the community, being part of conferences, reading blogs, gaining that confidence from peers who actually present and speak at conferences boosted my energy and my confidence levels. That why don't I try one day as well? And like, what's actually stopping me? And I think I went to one of the conferences, I think it was Test Bash Brighton, and they had a 99-second talk there. And I was like, if I don't do it today, I'm going to go back home on the train and I'm going to really feel bad that when I had the chance, I didn't take it. So I just went up on the stage and I just did something very basic, just thanked the conference, and I got off the stage within 99 seconds. And that just boosted my confidence. And I was like, right, next year, maybe I can apply for some talks and write abstracts and see how I feel. And slowly, that's how I've gained experience and started becoming extrovert from a person who was quite introvert. Even at school, I used to get complaints from teachers saying that she only talks when it's about dogs, otherwise she won't talk. So then my parents used to find it really funny. And then it's just like, there are times, like even today, I was told last minute that you need to lead this meeting. And I was like, right, I need to be an extrovert today. I need to sometimes, as Fiona said as well, sometimes you have to show that you're an extrovert just to kind of lead that kind of meeting or get everyone engaging, get the audience there to be able to get the right information out of it. So that's my story. I hope I answered the question.
Anyone else on this one, or I'll chip in my 2p worth. Okay. My story, if you like, is that up to the age of about 28, 29, I was terribly shy. Now you might think, how the hell can you be a conference speaker and be so shy and maybe apparently unstressed? But I can't answer that. But I do know I did answer an Myers-Briggs kind of questionnaire and find my type, for want of a better word, but that's the way it works. And I was definitely an introvert about 15 years ago, and I filled in the same kind of form, questionnaire, about a year and a half ago, maybe. And I was middle in between, introvert, extrovert. I was kind of on the borderline, sitting on the fence kind of thing. So I've kind of changed over time, but I think I had this terrible shyness to start a conversation and to make a phone call, which I still hate. I hate picking up the phone to make a call. But once I get started, you can't shut me up. And probably what you've seen, if you've seen me speak, is the can't shut me up bit. But I'm terrible at starting a conversation. So it's a real challenge for many people. And I'm very sympathetic to that. And I have to say, getting involved in conferences, and I think, as Lavina was saying, it's liberating for people who are normally the quiet person in the room, the thinker, probably the strategizer, possibly the smartest person in the room, who keeps quiet because their introversion kind of suppresses them in that way. So I think introverts of the world unite. We need to come out a bit more and put ourselves about a bit more. And I think we've got as much, if not more, to offer the world as the extroverts. And there's plenty of evidence to say that the extrovert types they have their value, but too often companies are dominated by extroverts who simply just make more noise. And that's a shame, I think, for us all. Any more on that, or shall I move on?
Yeah, I'll just share a little bit of a story, I suppose, Paul, just because it's a slightly different. I don't necessarily regard myself as an introvert, but I certainly used to lack confidence as a person generally. I'd find my confidence in life through just drinking and being with my mates and, just doing all the kind of social things. But actually, when you put me in a professional setting, I really didn't know how to operate. And my education from school and then through my career, nobody had really taught me how to have faith in myself and confidence in myself. And I think we all find triggers or moments in our lives where we get the opportunity to stand up and prove to ourselves we are worthwhile of having self-confidence. And for me, it's quite a personal story, but if you just let me have the floor for 1 minute, I'll tell it. I've adopted my children, or my wife and I have adopted our children. And we'd gone through the adoption process, which in itself is very rigorous. And it examines a lot about your personal life, your values, your behaviors, your family structures, your beliefs, and your capabilities. And to come out of the process with a ticket that says you're okay to adopt, we approve you, is something that people who maybe are natural parents don't have to do. But to get that qualification and that validation that we were reasonable people was really good. But with the child that we wanted to adopt, that is now our son, or one of our sons, we had to go through a last-minute court challenge. So the day we were due to bring that child home, we were challenged and we couldn't do it. And a court had to be called to look at the pros and cons of the child coming to us or to these other people. And it turned out the people who were contesting the adoption were very senior in social care and probably knew the system inside out. But we won the battle. And I walked out of that day having the adoption order. And the next week, our son came home to us. And I thought, if I can win that battle, I can do anything in a boardroom, because nothing is going to be tougher than that. And I think we all find moments in our lives where we have to step up to the plate. And that's my personal story. And once I had that confidence, and that hit me at the age of 40, I really wished I'd had that confidence from the age of 15. I'd be in a different place where I am now. But that's a story to share. Not about introversion necessarily, but about confidence.
I think as a coach, if I was wearing that hat at this moment, I would say, not to you, Mike, but I mean in general, always reflect on the challenges you've had that are almost certainly bigger than the one you're facing right now. I mean, you don't every day you don't get a bigger and bigger and bigger challenge. That's not necessarily how it works. But if you reflect on the problems you've had in the past that you've overcome and the successes you've had as well, I always think to myself, well, I've done this, therefore I can do that. And that just helps me mentally to get my head in the right place to, I wouldn't say do anything, but it's always worked for me. That's kind of how my brain works. Maybe that's not for everybody, but it works for me. Any more on introversion, extroversion? Should we move on? We're going to move on. Okay. Next question. Anonymous, I'm afraid, but it's always nice to see names so we can give you a little bit of the credit for asking a good question. But here's a question. I have 3 years of experience in testing. Is it early or too early to start with a leadership program? Also, I want to know where to start. I do have some plans, not really sure. What do we make of that, team?
Can I go?
Go, please do.
Yeah, I think my answer to that would be, I was just speaking to someone yesterday and I said testing is a role where you have a blank canvas and you can paint it the way you like. It's so good because you can decide what kind of route you want to take. You can be an all-rounder tester, you can be the star-shaped tester, you can be the T-shaped tester. It's up to you, and there's nothing stopping you from getting into a leadership program earlier on. It will just actually help you view if this is what you really want. And if you're early in there, then you can decide earlier and then maybe look into some other area if that was not of interest, and vice versa. So I think it's never too early. I think the brain is like a sponge. Try and learn as much as possible and paint your canvas the way you like. That's my kind of answer to that.
Okay, thanks, Lavina. Any more?
Yes, this is Michael Anderson. If you wait to get to a leadership role to take leadership training, you might never get to a leadership role. So somebody who's been through one of my masterminds recently, she was relatively early in her career at Salesforce. And she found that like during meetings with executives, she would be intimidated, so she wouldn't talk up. And that's why going through there, it gave her the confidence to be that person that even when she has something important to say, even though there were higher ups at the meetings, she would have the confidence and the ability to properly speak up and be part of that. And I think that leadership, it's not, you don't just have to be a managing team, managing people, but the people in the organization are always looking for people that are going to have that right kind of presence and that right kind of, whether it's assertiveness, whether it's taking charge, because the leaders in your organization are evaluating everything that you do, whether you realize it or not. And so to get the confidence, to get the leadership skills and everything else, to me, the earlier you can do that, the more you're going to set yourself up for a faster career ascension.
Thanks, Mike. Any more?
Yeah, I mean, I would go back to what I said in my presentation, which is that I think every tester is a leader and has to be a leader simply in order to do their job. And it will help if you can look at what are the elements of leadership that I'm already in how I practice my job, and work on enhancing those. Look at so what are the gaps. And in the meantime, what is a leadership program? Is there a leadership program in your company, or are you looking at external learning? You can certainly take whatever classes you want or go to conferences. There are leadership workshops at conferences. There are leadership presentations. There are panels like this one. There's lots to learn out there. There are books to read. Do that, because no, I wouldn't say it's never too early. It's never too early to learn.
It's never too late either.
Yeah.
Any more? I'll say something if it's okay.
Yeah, I'll chip in, Paul, because I think, you know, somebody who's got 3 years experience in testing, it is not too early to think about leadership roles and leadership programs. But in terms of knowing where to start, it goes back to what is it that leaders do in organizations. And most of the competencies and the upskilling that people in technical roles need to understand are really around their personal development as well as their professional development. So the best leaders in organizations tend to know how to communicate well. They know how to set strategy and vision. They know how to use the change cycle and the change curve to inspire and motivate people into different ways of behavior. They need to be good at marketing. They need to be good at negotiation. They need to understand business and margins. And actually, a lot of the things that people need to know in terms of where to start in leadership are not about testing, because the personal development skills and professional development skills in leadership are agnostic, but need to be learned. And it takes somebody to, I think, have a good mentor to say, you're a tester now, but where do you want to be? Understand what their career path looks like and their career plan, and help them understand what the gaps are that they need to fill in their personal and professional development. It takes some doing, but it's very achievable. But I think, as Fiona said, it's never too early to start, and you should do. But it's not about technical knowledge, it's about soft skills and behaviors.
Yeah, some of which you can acquire by outside the workplace as well.
Totally, yeah, agree.
I learned to do budgeting by being on the board of my housing co-op. You know, there are volunteer roles out there where you can learn all kinds of skills that will really help you in your work.
Sorry, Paul, I was just saying I agree with Fiona, and you know, some of the things that I get involved in at my son's football club. You know, I have to do a few presentations and pitches for something completely outside of IT to the board. And it's a good learning experience, and finding those voluntary positions is a really good way of acquiring those transferable skills that actually land in the workplace and help you elevate your career. And actually, hiring managers who want to look at the next set of leaders don't always want to see what you've done in the organisation. They want to see what you've done outside the organisation. So I think, Fiona, you got a great point there about talking about external opportunities and leveraging them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my take on this is people, I think, sometimes confuse leadership with management. That is, leadership versus telling people what to do. And leadership isn't about telling people what to do. It's about setting a good example in many respects. And I remember, you know, I mean, I'm sure I can remember several projects where there were individuals in teams who basically everybody looked up to, everyone thought set the standard of work, but hardly said a word. And they were a leader because they demonstrated to people that they had competence above and beyond the call of duty. And leadership doesn't have to be about shouting about it from the rooftops. It's about setting a good example. And in many ways, you know, leadership is about saying, well, I'm over here. I'm going to walk away from where we are today and stand over here. And if you want to join me, come along. And leadership is not necessarily an extrovert thing. You know, there are you can be an introvert and a leader, I think. I want to bring Rob in if I can. I'm a bit worried that he's not flying. But are you out there, Rob? You've got anything to say on this?
Can you hear me? I'm an introvert, so I've been trying to stay quite quiet. But hi, everybody. So
you're saying something.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So yeah, just echo a few of the points actually. But you know, if there's a leadership program at your business, then absolutely go for it. But if leadership was easily taught through programs, we wouldn't have such a massive array of poor leadership in business. And I think it was Mike that said it's about communication. And in my experience, 99.9% of leadership is communication. Just a couple of other things though. People choose to follow a leader, and I think Paul's just sort of alluded to that. So you've got to do something worth following, really. And the only way you're going to learn how to do leadership is to try to do leadership. And I think that sort of just sums it all up. It's not a job title. It's a sort of way of gathering people and leading them in a direction through good communication. but you can't get people to follow you unless they want to, and people will always follow a good leader.
Cool. Have we done that one? Shall I move on, or anyone else want to chip in? Okay, let's move on. Next one is for Michael Anderson. Please talk a bit more about reading people's minds, i.e. when they reply, I'm fine, but you know there is something wrong. I think we can all say something about this, but Mike Anderson, do you want to say something on that?
Yeah, and you know, from the psychological standpoint, you really have to meet them where they're at. So if you are dealing with an employee that you know something's going on, and again, I know I'm pushing my $8 book, but you know, pick up the book. It literally has a chapter and section on doing one-on-ones like this, because I think it's really important for you to get this. But you know, when you first of all, you want to schedule a time when you know that they're going to be present, and neither of you are going to be bothered by emails or calls or something. So you really have to set the time up if you can to really have a good one-on-one. And then if somebody asks, if somebody says they're fine, how are you? And they say they're fine. First of all, you want to slow down. You really want to slow yourself down, maybe just even breathe for a couple minutes before the call so that you're mindful. And then you can ask them again. You say, you're fine. You sure you're fine? And they might say yes. If they say yes again, what you want to do is you want to show some vulnerability. You might say, you know, I get it. This is a tough time for all of us. Last week was a bit of a tough time. You know, I took a half a day off because I was really burnt out. I know they're pushing us really hard, and that's why I just wanted to check in with you. So by you, like Paul said, showing the way with vulnerability, you're opening up the door for them to potentially be vulnerable. And then if they're still hesitant, because, you know, there's the power dynamic. If you're their boss and their leader, sometimes they don't want to open up. Maybe they feel a little ashamed. I would also say, hey, you know, I'm worried about you because of specific. You know, hey, Paul, I'm really worried because, you know, you're late and you're normally not late. You look a bit disheveled, and I really want to be there for you. And if there was something going on wrong, what would that be? Because you know, it's totally okay, but I really want to support you, and I really need to know what's going on. So the conversation sounds a little bit like that. And when you bring up specifics, they're hard to argue with. And so you're, in a way, you're opening the door for that deeper conversation. But then when that deeper conversation happens, because they could share some really deep things, you know, maybe somebody died, maybe somebody's really sick. And so your job then is just to listen. Just be quiet and listen. And there might be awkward pauses, but just sit in those pauses and let them get it out. And you know, even if they bring up some really big things that you're because I can, you know, sometimes when I'm on that, you know, listening to this, it's like I don't really know what they want. You can just say, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. I'll tell you what, can I follow up with you tomorrow, and then get your thoughts together, maybe talk to HR, maybe they need professional help. So don't think you have to solve it on the spot. Give yourself 24 hours to really give them a thoughtful response. And I think, I'm sure they'll be okay with that.
Thanks, Mike. More on that? Anyone want to contribute? Rob?
Yeah, I'm happy to throw a couple more thoughts in. I think, you know, listening is the key skill that, you know, we need to exhibit as leaders to people. And as Michael said, leave the silence to be there for people to step into and share what they want. But this is almost like a reactive approach when there is a problem. I think starting leadership with empathy and with kindness and with understanding and creating the trust with people in your team means that they shouldn't necessarily need to think twice or feel unconfident about coming to you with any issues that they've got. And I think that, you know, cultivating empathy and emotional intelligence is a thing that can be learned. And I think for technical people, it can be quite hard. They come from a technical background and have worked their way into a management position often where they are the most senior technical person, so they get line management responsibility. But some of the softer skills need to be learned and taught and cultivated over time. But for me, starting with the right training and the right coaching to be in a position to be an empathic leader gets you in a position where people won't have a problem talking to you in the first place.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Any more?
Yeah, I was just going to add to this. So I'm not qualified in any way, shape, or form about psychology, so I have absolutely no idea what's going on inside anyone else's head. So I think there's a bit of a thing. We need to be somewhat careful. I think in the industry, there's a lot of talks about how people have done a 2-week course on some psychological thing, and Michael is fully certified and qualified here, and he's got a great book which I've read. It's very, very good. But we have to be careful when we're not in that same position of, I guess, assuming that we know what somebody's thinking. There's been quite a lot, and this is my HR hat on, there's been quite a lot of cases in the news recently of people, managers particularly, thinking they know what people are thinking and going about doing actions that have got them into some serious trouble. So I always tend to err on the side of focus on behaviors, and it's not just the words that people are using, it's what they do, it's how they say it, it's their body language, and it's their work output. And I think if you can piece all of those things together, you get some real nice clues as to whether or not somebody's in trouble or having a difficult time of it. But I think Michael hit the nail on the head where he said, do we need to call in HR? And I think there's far too many managers try and tackle things that are way above what they should be doing. So yeah, use that technique, it's great. Dig deeper, try and find out, and obviously try and build that relationship, but just be super careful that you don't take on the role of a counselor or a psychologist if you're not qualified to do that.
Yeah, my experience was, I think small things really matter. And so my tip for today would be, as an example, if let's say you're in an office and you have your own private office and you have a door on it, well, your door's always open for people to walk in. But if someone comes in and it's going to be a sensitive conversation, is to close the door. It's as simple as that. And it just sends a strong message that it's a trustworthy, safe environment. And it's things like that that really matter at those moments when you're not trying to solve this guy's or this girl's problem. You're just trying to understand whether there is a problem, and then have a conversation about, well, where do we go next? I mean, maybe it is an HR thing. Maybe it's they're having personal issues at home. Who knows? It could be a million things. But for someone to open up and tell you what's bugging them is a real step forward for most people. And then you're in a good place to actually make some good suggestions, carefully, cautiously. Yeah, you're in a better place. But it can be a tough conversation to have. But mostly, you're doing the listening, not the talking. And that's the key thing, to listen, not to tell people what they should do, but to listen and let them work it out themselves. Any more on that one? What do you think?
I think on that, Paul, I think that a lot of the answers to the previous questions have alluded to how you get to that position in the first place, which is building good relationships. And the better the relationships you have with the people in the team, the more chance you have that they're going to open up to you and you be there to be supportive for them. So yeah, it comes down to relationships, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on. I've got another interesting one from someone called Santiago. Thanks for the question. Here we go. My seniority has come from being at my company longer and less from my skill set. I feel unworthy of leading very technical testers. How can I step up? So this is a very personal thing, I'm sure. What would we say to that?
This is Chris Meunier. For this one, I think getting elbows deep in some of the technical aspects. So if you have some technical testers who are building a test harness or a test suite, automating those things, participate in the merge request, participate in the pull request, and perhaps you don't have to necessarily code so much as be able to read the code and see if you can constructively provide feedback to the technical engineers or the test engineers that is of value. If it can be something as simple as a list of variables, maybe pointing to different environments that the test harness will be run on, for instance. But I think that's one of the most key things is if you're looking to manage technical testers, SDETs, or automation engineers, is through your own time management of allocating, I would say about equal to what you spend on managing your manual testers implementation of test cases. You'd also want to do that with your automation engineers, even if you don't code, but so much is that you can start reading what they're doing and be familiar with their the cue of what they're doing.
Yeah.
I would be uncomfortable with that. I think if I were in that position, I would want to start learning about the technical details, but I'm never going to know as much as they are. And I think it's what does leading them mean in this circumstance? I would want to understand what kind of leadership they needed, and some of that I think I would have to find out from talking with them. I think, you know, there's an awful lot of in our industry generally, people who consider themselves very technical are quite rude about people who are not technical, and some people, you know, are even contemptuous, and I think that you might expose yourself to even more of that if you attempt to play in the same pool. That it's perhaps, and maybe this is personality dependent, but I think that I would think it would be more productive and more helpful for me in those circumstances would be to find out what else they need. If they need technical leadership, who is there on the team who can provide that? How do they get it now? Because I'm not ever going to be in the position to give them technical leadership, but I may be able to help them in other respects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any more?
I think, Paul, yeah, I'll go. I think I definitely echo what Fiona just said. And also, if there's capacity, and say, for instance, right, in my team, I don't have someone right now who could actually lead technically. However, they do have like budget to send you for some training, or you can pick a day where you just do a little bit of training that day. I think that could also help. So again, it's a bit of give and take, isn't it? So you ask the team members what they want from you, and then you give them whatever possible that you can, just to ease the situation. And this way you're also learning, right? You're honing your skills. And I think if you in my opinion, lead so that the skills you acquire and the skills of your peers to build basically a smart and savvy team of quality advocates. I think that's the way I'd answer that question.
Thanks, Lavina. Any more?
I think there's a super positive part here is that, you know, I guess, as Santiago asked the question, is self-aware enough to know that this is an issue. So this is a great first step, and all the advice that has been given is great. I mean, I meet too many people who are in that position that have complete oblivion to the fact that they're in that position. So thank you for the question. I think that's, yeah, very personal, good bit of self-reflection.
Yeah, I think we've all probably been in the position at one time in our career where we think we've been kind of over-promoted or mispromoted or given leadership of a team that we feel not qualified. You know, it's kind of, that's life in some ways. I mean, you just have to sort of talk to the people and almost ask them, well, what do you need from me? You know, do you want me to stay out of your life, or do you need me on your back all the time, or do you need me as a cheerleader, or do you need me as a technical leader giving you technical advice and maybe even micromanaging you? I mean, it's kind of, you've got to build relationships as always, and just talk to the people that are in your team. And maybe you need to learn a bit more on the side, do a bit of homework to catch up if you are behind them in a technical way. But people by and large are pretty reasonable, and they will understand if you say, I feel like I'm not qualified to manage you. They will, and I need your advice to tell me, you know, what I should do with you and how I should interact with you. I think they'll take that the right way usually. Not many people reject being asked the question, how shall we work together? Any more
Paul,
on that?
Yeah,
Oh,
Paul,
sorry,
no, it's okay. It's Mike here. You know, you did right, and actually both what Rob and Fiona and Lavina have said is spot on. You need to ask the teams how you can help them, how you can be of service. You're there as a leader to help them achieve their best work, and whatever you can do to actually facilitate that is within your gift, and you need to be finding that out because you won't know by asking. But the other question you need to ask is of the stakeholders of the team. What is it that our team are doing for you that works? and what is it that they could be doing better? What are we missing? What could we do to delight you further? Because there may be some blockers to communications coming top down that you can help to broker and translate into more clear direction or translation as to what they could do differently and how they could do it to actually be more effective and valuable in their company. So it's a two-way conversation, and as a mid-manager, you are in the middle, and you're reporting up and reporting down, and you're helping to flow that conversation and communication both ways. And so you're the conduit, and it's important not to forget the stakeholders in this conversation.
I think that's a really important point, that when you are in a management position or in a lead position, you're never only managing the people who are reporting to you. You're always trying to build bridges across and up and down to other teams and so on. And that's part of your job is of course also to protect the people who are reporting to you, to help remove blockages and to communicate their needs to other teams as well.
Yeah. Any more on that one, or should we move on?
Well, just real quick, two things stuck out of the question. I do agree with Rob. This is a great self-reflective question: is skill set and worthiness. Am I worthy to do this? And I believe that that's leading to that. Have you invested in your skill set? Have you taken leadership training? Because again, it's a learned skill. And because you really need a belief in yourself, you really need a level of confidence. And if you do think that you're in a level because of seniority instead of a skill set, then you're going to be in a bit of an ego-based position. And then there's probably going to be some insecurity, and people are going to be a bit turned off by that because you're trying to protect yourself. And so what I would really encourage you to do is find the right program for you to invest in your leadership skills, which would also give you the confidence in yourself. Because if everybody out there thinks of a leader that they really respected and they really followed, they had an air of confidence about them. And we need that confidence. We need to bring resilience. We need to bring. That's what people follow confident people. To me, that's a key to leadership. And that doesn't mean you know it all, but you and the team are going to be able to figure out whatever is there. To me, confidence in leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about when things aren't perfect, that we got it covered. And so I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think so too, Mike. I think a phrase that comes into my mind very often when you're talking with people who need reassurance, maybe, is there's always a way. There's always a solution. That the solution might come from nowhere. It might come from a place you don't expect. But there's always a way of dealing with almost every problem you encounter. I'm not saying, the pilots just had food poisoning and the plane's about to crash into the ocean. I don't mean that kind of problem, but day-to-day problems that people have. There's always a way around, either around or over or under or sideways. There's always a way. And if people believe that's the case, they'll take seriously any suggestion that you should just think more clearly, ask for advice, talk to other people, and so on, and make progress. That's the problem. Any more on that, or shall I move on? I'll move on. Right. Lukash, I hope I've said that correctly. What is the one advice would you give to someone who was just promoted to QA manager position from being a regular tester? So this is kind of similar to the last conversation, but if you want to give one piece of advice, go for it. Why let's play it that way?
I would say time management. I think that's key because, as Fiona pointed out and others have pointed out, you're going to have to be managing your time, working with other groups in an organization that's producing software. You're going to be managing your own team. You want time for yourself so that you can strategize on improving the test implementation, as well as improving your own soft skills, taking courses on conflict management and resolution and communication. So I would say the one thing I would give to anyone who's been promoted to QA manager position is to work on their own time management.
Yeah, thanks for that. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would add, find out what the expectations are. A lot of people are going to be expecting things from you, and you're going to need to know what those are. Starting, of course, with your own management, and the team that you're managing, but also other teams. And then there are other QA managers, and they appear to be successful. Work with them, get an understanding of what it is that they do and how they do it.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, it's Mike, Paul. I think, Fiona's just explained, very cogently about the value of networking within your peer group and learning from them. The other bit I'd suggest, which I think is really important for people in management positions for the first time, is knowing how to represent your team, knowing how to articulate the benefits of the work they do and the value they bring to the organization. Because at the end of the day, whatever mechanisms that the organization that they're working in have got, without stakeholders understanding the value and the importance of the work they provide, it's very difficult to get funding, difficult to get pay rises, difficult to get the budget for tools and environments. And so learning how to market and sell the value of the team that you're representing is really important.
Yeah. Any more? I think we've kind of had some of this conversation already. So any more, or I'll move on? Let's move on. Okay, next one. Anonymous, I'm afraid, but what is your advice for the leads who take their irrelevant anger out on junior employees and degrading their performance without any reason? This doesn't sound like a happy situation. Does anyone have a view on that? The leads who take their...
I don't understand. Are we giving advice to the people who are getting angry?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It sounds like a bad situation regardless.
Yeah, I mean, the advice for those people who are acting that way is maybe you're not in a role that works for you.
Maybe, yeah. It's a tough one. I think you'd have to know a bit more about it to say anything meaningful in some ways.
Is the anger coming from pressure above or who knows? So this does sound like a very unhappy situation.
Yeah. Well, just one quick thing, because it's probably they're probably working with somebody who or one or more people that get angry. Just remember, anger comes from fear. Anger is people psychologically trying to protect themselves. So if anybody's angry, if they constantly get angry at people, they're fearful. They're fearful that they aren't confident in themselves. They're fearful in their job. Something could be happening at home. And I think just by keeping that in mind, sometimes you can. That doesn't mean it's okay. Sometimes to me, when I know where things are coming from, it can help me manage the situation better and manage that person better.
Yeah. It's a tough one to give a straight answer to, in my opinion, because you kind of need to know the situation in the round, because there might be everybody's angry with everybody because it's a lousy project, badly managed from the top, impossible deadlines, pressure. And some people respond by being unpleasant, and others go all sheepish and just stay out of the limelight and just try and keep their heads down. That's a difficult one to give advice to, I have to say. Anyone else got a view on this one, or have I undermined everybody?
I do recognise what everyone else has said on the panel, but I think the important part of this question is about junior members of the team. In no world is that appropriate behaviour. And whether you're managing the people who are, displaying the wrong behaviours, or whether you are, acting on the behalf of the people on the receiving end of it, in no way is that appropriate conduct. And I think the person that's actually behaving in an appropriate way needs to understand the effect of their actions and behaviours. I think you need to advocate for the people that are on the receiving end of it, particularly their junior staff. And just make it absolutely clear that that's not an appropriate way to respond to junior members of the team. You've got to show some support for them and advocate for them.
Yeah. Okay, oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Go ahead.
No, it's a really quick one. I don't know, it depends on everyone, right? But if a junior member feels like they are confident to speak to that individual, whether it's a manager or anyone else, then maybe they could grab a quick meeting room and have a chat and just be direct and be like, it's made me feel uncomfortable. I wouldn't like to carry on that way. If there's something that you can do or the team can help, it's obviously it's a tricky situation, but if you can speak and see if there can be some sort of solution, that would be a great point. But I do know that it can be a bit tricky. Just thinking about myself, I went through a similar situation and I tried speaking to that person directly and it didn't go down well. So it's up to the situation and how you kind of want to handle it.
Yeah. Okay, I will move on now. It's an interesting one, the one about assertiveness and aggressiveness. How do you identify the thin line between assertiveness and aggressiveness as a leader? I guess, when people go too far, it might be a similar kind of conversation to the last one, but does anyone have a view on this? No. Okay, let's move on. Panel, do you think that this is Gordon Merritt, sorry, I should say. Thanks, Gordon. Do you think that leadership can be taught, or is it something that someone has or doesn't have as a personality trait? Is this going over old ground? What do you think?
I definitely think leadership can be taught. I think it's a skill. It's a combination of many skills. And like any of the so-called soft skills, which I tend to think of rather as interrelational skills, it's definitely something that you can learn. And like anything, I mean, some of us learn languages and more easily than others, or learn math. So there may be some people who are predisposed to learn these things more readily. But I do believe that anyone can learn.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Fiona. Any more?
Go
ahead.
Sorry, was someone else talking?
Go ahead, Rob. It's all right.
All right, cool. I think there's an interesting theory about it in that it can't be taught, but it can be learned. Yeah. And I think it's almost kind of like, I can't remember who said it earlier, or it might have been Michael that said, you've got leaders who you admire, you can just sort of observe them and study them and start mimicking them. And I might slightly disagree with Fiona in a sense that I don't think it's skills, I think it's behaviors. And behaviors can be observed, and we can nudge our own behaviors, we can change them. It's not easy, don't get me wrong. I still don't go for a run every morning like I plan to. But the thing with leadership is I don't think it's really hard to crystallize and teach it, but it is actually entirely possible to learn it. And I think find somebody you admire, find somebody with a series of behaviors that you wish you had, that you think are good leadership behaviors, and copy them, try them, see what works, see if it resonates with who you are as a person.
Thanks, Rob. Any more on this one? This is the last question because we're coming up to time. So any more to say? Okay, I'll take it as a no. So let me thank the panel, Lavina, Fiona, Chris, Mike Anderson, and Mike Jarrett. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. I'm sure that was useful to many, many people out there. Personally, I'd like to thank the audience who've been here and stuck with us all day, and obviously all the speakers who've taken part in the show and made a contribution. With that, I'll close and hand over to Jonathan, who's going to take the show for the final phase. Over to you, mate.